Hi, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Rihanna, and welcome back to Fresh Off the Broke.
Fresh Off the Broke is about personal experiences growing up Asian American in a predominantly white community, Asian media, and Asian pop culture in general. Race has always been a sensitive topic. Every day, there are debates over race. With our podcast, we intend to shed light on the experiences of first-generation Asian immigrants, not put them on a pedestal.
We understand that race isn't everything, but there should be an acknowledgement of people of color, the knowledge gap, and the racial divide that will ideally be broken. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the episode. Today's topic is the infantilization of Asians. In case you are wondering what we mean by the infantilization of Asians, this refers to the general idea / perception / possible tendency to treat or perceive Asians as younger or childlike. Maybe you see them as like cartoony, or you see them as like cutesy, and feel the need that they need to be protected or sheltered from the world, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you could say that this may possibly stem from the fact that Asians relatively do look younger than like other adults of other like backgrounds. I mean, there is the term or the saying Asian don't raisin, and I think that that's pretty true. And generally the targets for being infantilized are male idols, whether that be like K-pop idols or just any Asian male idol in general, and Asian women, no matter the status of like idol or just like a regular girl off the street. Generally,
Mm-hmm.
those two are the targets of infantilization.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of this infantilization happens on like social media or
Mhm.
the media in general.
Mhm.
I mean, on, for instance, like Twitter, there's a lot of people that are kind of like babying the male, like Asian male celebrity, like the like K-pop boy that they really like. They'll
Mhm.
treat him like a baby, or they'll like use very baby like language,
Mhm.
talk about them.
Mhm.
And it's almost like you were saying, the whole protection thing. And even though that person is quite possibly 35, they treat them like they're a 5-year-old.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with thinking someone is cute,
Mhm.
or like, I guess, has some adorable habits, but
Mhm.
that doesn't, there's a difference between that and then basically infantilizing a 35-year-old man.
Yeah, exactly. And this reminds me, I don't think I'll be able to find like the image or like the video that it was, because when I saw it, it was like a screenshot of a video of a screenshot of a video like type thing. But it was someone who was saying like complaining about BTS being enlisted in the army finally, and they were like, how are they gonna know that Jimin doesn't like this on his food, or like this, like they're gonna feed him the wrong thing? And then someone replied with just like, they're grown men, I think they'll be fine. But that's like a clear example
Dang.
of just like, oh my gosh, they're joining the army, no way, like they're too precious for the art, or like being worried for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, of course, hearing with some people who aren't really used to like Korea's enlistment system, maybe they think like, oh my god, they're going to be on the front lines of war or something. But no,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case. um but yeah, it's just a lot of fans in this specific situation are like very, very, very concerned for their well-being, even though they're like they're older than they would have been if they were normally enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
Like way older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean a lot of this plays into like the general, I guess, like how do I want to word this? Because we've talked about it in a previous episode with Ricky and Mike when we were talking about like toxic masculinity
Mm-hmm.
and the way that Asian men are emasculated by the media and kind of treated as, for lack of better words, as if they're women. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're seen as in like they're not masculine enough or like they're
Mm-hmm.
not real men.
Uh-huh.
And then to add on, or I guess this infantilization plays into that because
Mm-hmm.
they're just, I mean, yes, people on social media or people in the media do baby other older celebrities, even if they're not Asian, but it happens a lot more with Asian celebrities,
Oh yeah.
especially like Asian, if we're talking about like celebrities like Asian men, and it like not only are they not seen as like men, they're not seen as like adult men.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like when you do see people maybe infantilizing or talking about how cutesy like a Western celebrity is, a Western male celebrity, it's typically due to like their like what they say and their habits. But even just looking at an Asian male celebrity, people would automatically be like, oh, a cute baby, you know? Like they
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time it's they don't even take into account maybe like they do have these cutesy, I guess, in this sense, childlike habits or like things that they do, but people don't really look into that. It's very fast to be like, oh, he's a baby, just by
Mm-hmm.
face. So like he has a baby face, therefore child, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, like we've been saying, like this is literally a 35-year-old man,
Yeah,
like fully grown adult.
yeah.
And then outside of what we were saying about like toxic masculinity or like the emasculation of Asian men, there's also this blatant and very, I mean, not that it's, I was gonna say odd, but I don't know if that's the word I want to use because then it's like, but anyway, there's this blatant and very long time like hypersexualization of Asian women, especially this idea of like a young Asian girl, you know, like the Asian school girl, or just like this
Mm.
cutesy little Asian girl.
Mm-hmm. Ugh. I thinking about that is very we both have more of a connection to this because we are both Asian, young Asian girls.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of this, we'll get into it, but a lot of this is very personal. I kind of touched on this before, but again, we will note that stereo or not stereo, typically or generally, like in a biological sense, Asian women are on the smaller side, just based on like genetics and like diet and everything. Like it's a whole other conversation. Like goes into like cultural food stuff like that. However, this the infantilization of Asian women, I will say there's more of a like there's a way darker undertone to it that it can like possibly perpetuate darker things that we will get into this later. But I think there's a pretty big difference between the infantilization of Asian males and Asian women.
To add on to what you were saying about, I guess, like from a genetic standpoint, Asian women being more like on average on the like petite side, like in terms of like height
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. There's yeah, I mean, there's definitely I guess people lean into that or people take that and then I guess use it to play up the whole like cutesy Asian because I mean our listeners like you've probably heard this like the whole idea of like this cute small Asian girl or this
Mm-hmm.
soft small this the word small comes up a lot
Mm-hmm. Like tiny.
because she's like there she's very tiny and cute and doesn't really take up any space
Mm-hmm.
and she's like submissive and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been saying for the longest time, there's been a like hypersexualization of small, like this like quote unquote small Asian girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is not only just the infantilizing in the sense of like, oh, you're just so cute and small and you don't know anything, you don't know any better. But that infantilization also plays into like Rihanna was saying, like a darker
Mm-hmm.
there's a darker side to it because
Yeah.
it's not just about not necessarily taking someone seriously because I guess you see them as a baby. It's also like there's an attraction
Yeah.
to this like baby
Yeah.
character.
Yeah. Like the whole sexualization. Like this is a complete intersection of infantilization and sexualizing. And I think people can start to see where we're going with this. I think a lot of people are starting to get, or maybe starting to get where we're trying to like dance around here, but essentially this intersection is bordering on pedophilia. And as much as this topic is uncomfortable to talk about, it is something that we need to address because it is very, very real in society and in media. I think people really need to reflect on how they use this like concept or when they talk about this concept of the infantilization of Asians because I've seen it been thrown a lot like around a lot on social media um in a way that comes from like it comes from a innocent standpoint like someone who thinks who like they're doing good for the community but what ends up happening is people are saying starting to like perpetuate the idea of like you can't be interested in this person in this adult because they are Asian and they look like a child. And I understand that the people are trying to point out that yes, people do fetishize Asians because they are stereotypically smaller and more petite. But by saying things like you aren't allowed to or you shouldn't be interested in this type of person or like this specific person because they look like a child, it's a weird like on like a border of like you're pretty much just reinforcing the fact that or the not fact that Asian people look like children, you know?
There's a lot of babying and I guess weird protection
Yeah.
going on there. I have never personally seen the situation that you just brought up, but I have definitely seen or heard things of like a similar realm.
Hmm.
I have, so I've kind of seen, I don't know if I would call it the opposite, but so say an Asian celebrity, like let's just say like a K-pop boy, uh, liked a given movie or they like said something, and then people were shocked and like he he can't like that. That's I don't know, that's too explicit.
Mm.
Must be protected. Who taught him or how did he
Yeah, oh
know
my
about
God,
this?
who taught him this? Ugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean it's definitely happened with female celebrities too, but I guess it's
Hmm.
just not the same frequency.
Hmm.
Or it's just not they're not dealt with the same way.
Hmm. I will also add on, this is a little more, I will say, I think my social media, at some point, I was very much on like the Asian Fisher side of TikTok, like
Mm-hmm.
that whole weird, I don't know what was going on, but I saw a lot of this. And um I saw a lot of like Asian women just dressing the way that they wanted to as an adult. Not even, just like dressing normally as they would every day. And people being like, oh, like she's profiting off of looking like a child, and that's bad.
Oh
You know what I
man.
mean? Like, it's like, this is morally incorrect because she's clearly trying to look smaller and more like a child to play into that, like, the capitalization of being fetishized, I guess. But like it was just an Asian woman living like just dressing like normal, you know?
Uh-huh.
It's a weird, I will say, it's very, very much a gray area because sometimes it is clear that it's more like they're trying to go for like the cutesy anime girl, you know, like schoolgirl look. And then
Uh-huh.
sometimes
Yeah,
it's
there
like,
there are people that try to profit off of.
yeah, for sure. And that's a whole nother episode. But there is that gray area of like this person is most likely just trying to dress like they would every day.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like they're still perpetuating like, oh, this is a child, not an adult, and just completely ignoring the fact that adults are adults, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've shared this on podcast before, I'm pretty sure, but I've had an interaction or two with classmates where they've kind of said weird things along the lines of, I guess. Okay, there was this girl, I've definitely told you this before.
Mm.
So there was this girl in my class that would give me these very odd compliments that felt pretty racially motivated, and they would always have something to do with, for instance, like my Asian features or the way I dress and how she was jealous of them. And there was one particular moment where she was saying to me, like, "Oh, how can you?" Or I'm jealous that you can wear an oversized sweater without looking like the term she used was a lolly, which is a term used in anime to talk about like a a young girl with like a small frame.
It's not, it's just a child. Like it's just a
Yeah,
child girl.
pre prepubescent, and then like one of the things that kind of characterizes her is the fact that she has like a smaller chest. And it was
Hmm.
really odd because yes, I was wearing an oversized sweater. I was wearing like a turtleneck sweater, and she just randomly said to me that she was like so jealous because I wore that without looking like that, like
Yeah.
that. And it was so weird to me because, well, for one, I didn't really know what she had just said to me,
Hmm.
but at the same time, that's such an odd, like, why are you jealous? Because here's the thing, that type of character that we were just talking about is also like a huge, I guess, character in the infantilization of Asian women and also like hypersexualization of infantilized
Yeah.
Asian women because
Yeah.
they're in so in anime there is, I guess, there is like a market for small Asian women, or yeah,
Yeah.
there's these like small cute schoolgirl or these small cutesy girls.
Hmm.
They are hypersexualized and then made to be, or made for the audience to think that they're super attractive even though it's
Hmm.
wildly inappropriate.
Yeah.
And so that was something
Yeah.
that
Oh,
threw me
I forgot
off.
about that.
Sometimes I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but sometimes I get little reminders of things from my brain that something happened,
Yeah.
whether that be yesterday, an hour ago, a month ago, 10 years ago. My brain just goes, hey, remember when this happened? And then I go, I wish I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that this topic in general, I'm sure as people may have listened and realized that it is, it's may sound like the whole term of infantilization of Asians may sound a little bit like unheard of or like detached, but it's very much rooted into current like pop culture and media.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, this is a very, very serious topic that should be addressed. But I think people, just to keep in mind as we slowly come to an end, that this topic has like a lot of weight, and really think about that weight before you address it. Because, of course, with having social media, it's very easy to go out and post something either on like Twitter, TikTok, something like that, that may think is informative, but doesn't really address the entire picture.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's possible that you won't even see stuff or like content like this just based on your what you see, but it does exist and it is being spread to certain people. And especially now, social media is being spread to generations that are getting younger and younger. So please be wary when you speak about this. Earlier, we brought up the whole Asian don't raisin, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, that's generally used as a compliment. But the infantilization is not something that should be seen in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. It's not, as much as that person tried to make it, it's not a compliment to be like,
Yeah.
wow, you like did this without looking like this caricature of an infantile, like a super young, small,
Yeah.
tiny Asian girl.
Yeah.
That's not a compliment to me.
Mm-hmm. And even just looking at the more lighter side of the infantilization of like K-pop idols, as much as you think it's harmless and you think it's like, oh, I'm just being a good fan, like it's so dehumanizing to these grown men. And it's just a little weird. Like he's a grown man. These are grown people and you are treating them like a child. It's very like it's like you're almost looking down on somebody.
So, as we kind of been mentioning throughout the episode about seeing something on social media or hearing about something lately, this topic of Asians being seen as baby. They're not really being taken seriously at their own very much adult age, and as well as sexualizing them for it. These are things that have kind of been on our mind lately, and yet they've been on our minds before. I mean, when we're talking about yellow fever
Mhm.
or the toxic masculinity episode, but I guess in the specific context as a separate video or as a separate episode, this has been something that we kind of been thinking about lately, just because, I mean, it's one of those things where sometimes you don't notice it completely outright because they're more like small things someone says, small
Mhm.
things someone does. And then as it builds up, you notice, or maybe you just one day kind of think about it and you're like, oh, that was kind of weird. Kind of like, I mean, in the moment, I had already thought that what that one person said to me was odd, but there are definitely moments where my brain reminds me of that conversation I had, and I don't know, I guess play it back in my head in like a VHS, in the VHS. Yeah, let's just say, like, you put the VHS into the thing and then the
Mhm.
monitor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it and I'm just thinking, what the heck was that? Why did you say
Yeah.
that to me? What That was so weird. That was so odd. And then you're kind of like noticing more things that are kind of messed up about it. And so, like I was saying, been on our mind a bit lately. And we wanted to put this into or talk about this in an episode to, in a way, highlight and bring up these things that we've been noticing and kind of ask y'all if you experience the same thing, you've noticed the same thing, have
Mm.
you gotten compliments like this by, I don't know, someone at work, someone at school, to someone you know? Did they have an incident with this? Like, how do you feel about it, or how do they feel about it? And
Mhm.
like, what do you think about this whole like scenario, or not scenario, this topic as a whole? Like, have you ever felt infantilized
Mhm.
because you're Asian? Have you ever felt like there was this expectation for you to be this tiny Asian girl?
Mm. Oh God.
And so, as we kind of pose this question to you, or I guess bring this topic onto, it sounds a little weird to say bring it into the spotlight as if we're shining this huge light on it, but as we bring this topic to our and yours attention, we are like very much curious about your thoughts. So, as always, I mean, I say this every episode, we're incredibly thankful for your tuning in and your listening. And we're always super curious and we want to know what you think about the things we talk about. So for sure, feel free to leave a comment answering one or any of the things that I had mentioned before. Like, have you heard this? Have you heard of this? Have you seen this? Have you experienced this sort of care? Someone tell you about a crazy story where something like that happened to them? These like big things, small things. Like, have they had an impact on you? We want to hear it all, and we're happy to read it all.
Period. Well, if you guys like this episode and want to stay connected with us, check out our website in the description. It contains links to our streaming platforms such as Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and more. Follow us for more behind the scenes content, announcements, and other random things we decide to put on there.